digital finance, let's see what are the risks.
There's high risk of defaults.
Default risk. Across board, default risk. The risk that borrowers will, I will just get online, borrow the money, on either of the platforms that allow borrowing, isn't it? Borrow, and then what happens? You fail to pay back. Today, Kenya has how many mobile lending apps? Many is not enough. The last time I checked, they were 36. They were 36, and my interest in them was that we were doing some research and trying to encourage guys to save on a mobile platform, but then they found it better. I mean, there was lots of competition amongst other mobile applications whose interest is not really in saving, but their interests are in lending. And then there is high propensity to borrow than to save. Right? Default risk is real in the context of digital finance. Another one?
And the element of data. Data protection.
Data protection. Data protection. So these guys come up with an app. You put in all your data, date of birth, isn't it? Your identification, everything. So in the era of digital finance, your data is literally outside there. And you just give in your data on your phone, on your computer. You just give out your data. Let's see. What else? Fraud. Yes. You wake up one day, someone gives you a call and asks and tells you that the loan we advanced to you some 2 months ago, we are now getting impatient. When exactly are you paid? And you are first asking, what loan did you advance me? Which means someone else could have access to your credentials and borrowed. Identity fraud. Identity fraud is real, right? Identity fraud is real in the context of digital finance. What else?
There's also an element of high risk of money laundering amongst the lenders.
Money laundering. Money laundering is real. Let me pick one more so that I go back to consumer protection. Sorry. Money laundering. Yes, he says explain a bit.
I think when people want to launder illicit money, is an element of being willing to lose a little for the bulk of it to get the system. So how they would do it is that they would have money that is coming from, say, an embargoed country. Then they lend that money at a low interest rate, of course expecting a small or a high rate of default, but then they over-declare the amount that has been paid back. And by over-declaring, they're able to bring in much more money than which has been lent. Eventually, the whole money can get back the system. A small percentage loss through the defaulted loans. So they really do not get collect back, they simply want to bring in the entire amount back.
Okay. There is another element of, there's another element here of risk that I'm not hearing.
Exploitation in pricing.
Exploitation in terms of pricing. And closely related to that is information disclosure. Very closely related to that. And the point is information disclosure. In other words, for a seller, in an open market situation, I should be able to give appropriate information with regard to the financial product, and then after giving appropriate information, then, only then, do the service, the consumer interact with the product. So consumers, ideally, in an ideal situation, information should be disclosed, and then consumers interact with the product after understanding the information, understanding the risks, and knowing exactly what this product is all about. In digital finance, mambo ni haraka haraka, isn't it? So, if I ask, you've borrowed, who've used, then we just pick any person at random, anyone who's used mobile credit in the recent past. Me, I have this up. Okay. Which platform, if you don't mind? KCB Mobile. Okay. What are the terms and conditions? Remember, this guy is an elite. He's an elite. When you see him here, there's an elite, you know. The over 15 million Kenyans who are using this service, over 80% of them are not as privileged, say, in terms of education and exposure as he is. Okay? So what are the terms and conditions of this good product?
It's 7.5%.
Sorry?
It's 7.5% interest, I believe.
Yeah. He already knows that the interest rate is 7.5%. But then, that's it. Who else has system? Hey, you guys are doing well. If you ask many of these guys, they will tell you that you have to go to Tala so that you go back to branch, you go back to Mshwari, you borrow from one guy to pay the other. Yes, yes.
I have not used, but I receive random SMSs. So they put, I think, like 3-4 points as the terms. Some, like, you can repay in unsecured, you can repay in these days.
Which is not really terms and conditions.
Yes.
It's a market gimmick. You know, because you've got to run away from, there is the marketing part of it and there is the terms and conditions of a product. I could tell you, in fact, if you a professionally made advert within this financial services industry will tell you, we can give you this, we can give you this, we can give you this, terms and conditions apply. You get? So in other words, what we are giving you are generalities and highlights, but bottom line is that there are certain terms and conditions. Never mind, even when we see those terms and conditions, what do we do? You agree. You consent to the terms and conditions even without reading them. So what does that do? Now there's risks here. With digital finance, we find that the elements of consumer protection, even by regulation, have completely outweighed the regulators. Remember we said the regulator doesn't move as fast, but it has completely outweighed the regulators. And it has been left, most of this has technically been left to the moral obligation of the service provider. And also the client as well. It has been left to be an element of moral obligation, which is okay if people choose to follow that. But you and I know that morality, there is a strict distinction between morality and law, isn't it? That what is moral may not necessarily be legal. When you are borrowing on a digital mobile platform, when you open up, of course you go to the loans, right? Then once you get to the loans, it brings in an aspect of terms and conditions. View terms and, so the moment you click on loans, then you get something like view terms and conditions. So you click on view terms and conditions, then once you view the terms and conditions, continue. So if you continue, now you get to borrow. Never mind that view does not necessarily mean that this person read. Then, within that, we are running an experiment. Within that, there is a tab of ignore, so that I don't have to. I just move from this step straight into the loan application stage, right? But here, there is an element of view terms and conditions. So we want to see, are the outcomes of the individuals who view the terms and conditions different from the outcomes? Because you can always tell whether this individual skipped that step or not. The software is able to track. With a 1, viewed, it records it as 1. Did not view, records it as 0. Then you are able to tell those guys who viewed, never mind that viewing means completely different things. Someone may have read but not understood, isn't it? You could read but you haven't understood, or you could just have appreciated that it is there, but never mind. But what we want to do is to see, does incorporating a terms and conditions as a prerequisite before accessing a source of finance on mobile credit, does it lead to better decisions? Does it lead to better repayments? Does it lead to compliance with the terms and conditions in a bid to avoid this default? And guess what? This default is a huge pain to those guys. It's a huge pain to the digital finance providers. Huge. So many of them are trying to reach out to people, and these individuals can't pay, won't pay.
What is the percentage
On? You see, the guys who pay to borrow, those ones are very good. The problem is the guys who borrow and don't pay, which is as high as 40%.
But sometimes it's also because of the fraud. I mean, somebody has gotten hold of the phone and they get loans, and the usual
Exactly. So there are also elements of fraud, as she puts it, that it is not really a non-performing loan, but it is because someone borrowed money using, somehow managed to get through my systems, borrowed money on my behalf, and spent it on their own. So, but those are very interesting issues that are brought about by the elements of digital finance. And what are we seeing? Moving on, it is a huge issue because we are not going to move out of digital finance. It's even going to be much more sophisticated. It's going to be much more complicated. And the sooner regulators also start focusing on these areas, the better. Because regulators, as we start, do not even have capacity. Tell the truth. Regulators do not even have capacity to really provide consumer protection in the era of digital finance. It's just crazy. They don't really have capacity to monitor this.
Asking the same question, when they are doing the licensing,
Yes.
they don't study the whole contract
Now, the communications guys, and you can see the disconnect. If you go to, you can see the disconnect that always arises. When you ask, so who regulates these guys? Who regulates the different service providers? Because people will come up with brand new things, right? And then there is the regulatory leakage. So now who is regulating these people? Are they left to? So, because on one end, you've got the communications authority. On the other end, you've got the telecom providers themselves, because you must have all those SSD numbers and, you must work. You've got to work with a telco. And on the other hand, you've got the traditional regulators such as the central bank. And then they tell you, but that is not a bank. So that's the reality with digital finance. What are you guys researching on? Is anyone researching on digital finance for your MBA? What did you say? Because these are the hot issues. these are the hot issues that you can really, really do very nice papers and revolutionize the way things are done.
There was a time I received a message. Okay, I don't know the guy, because I don't know how I have his number, my contact list. So the message was like, tell so and so to pay our loan. He's defaulted for like 5 months. Is it fair?
You guaranteed them?
No.
No.
It is just like you are passing a message. It is like they're going.
Sorry, can I explain how it works? So, like, when you write, when you write a mobile application,
Yes.
you can allow it to touch different parts of the phone. So one part of your phone is your contacts. So I'm thinking that application has the ability to read the contacts, then it can steal information from the defaulter's phone. And then from there, if it communicates that information back, it means then the service can be able to send SMS. So that's part of like what you're talking about, like data protection.
Data protection.
Because if you say yes to those terms and conditions that, you know, what they build in the feature into the application that says, do you give permission, let's say for this application to read the location, let's say to read your contact, you know, I think it's possible because so long as you say that you'll probably need the money, then it takes the data.
Another problem is people when you say no, they don't continue to make the money.
Exactly.
But that is the aspect.
Yeah.
I say no.
But that is the aspect. But that is the aspect of data protection.
No, it doesn't continue.
I think my view is that mobile lending applications are not a bad thing.
They're not bad.
They're not bad. They are actually a good thing for the economy. They have really unlocked a lot of potential to many people. The only thing that people need to identify and to understand is why mobile lending apps are operating the way they're operating, or why the cost of debt is very high, is because of the element of risk on the side. As you mentioned before, it is very high.
Sure.
Mobile lending, up to 40% default. And this money, most of the lending apps, the good ones, the ones who have actually built a name and the business behind it, have borrowed a lot of debt from various investors. The aspect is the element of how much that debt costs to them, vis-a-vis how much they actually lend. So if they calculate the risk and compute and see there's also a default element towards lending this money, then they need to consider also that cost they have got.
And, if I may add to what he said, add the dilemma of charge the good guys to be able to recover what the bad guys did not. So, therefore, you end up paying for the sins of your brothers and sisters who did not pay because you are a good one, so we charge you a relatively high rate of interest. So that when I do my workings, at the end of it, I'm not completely.
Question. When we discuss the mobile lending platforms, in 2015, we came up with the Consumer Protection Act. I think in my view, all those standard form contracts, all of them are illegal. Illegal.
Yes.
Whether or not you accept terms or don't accept. And I think that's where the challenge, most of them are going to fail because the recovery measures do not exist. I don't think they can survive the test of the Consumer Protection Act. Remember, it says that there is what you call unconscionable conditions.
Yes.
And these are conditions that, even if I read, to Joshua's point, there is nothing I can do about them. I cannot negotiate and say, revise this clause, put it this way. And secondly, there are terms and conditions that are extremely one-sided. So if you read that act, it says that if you have a contract that has such terms, then it is an anti-consumer contract. And many of them don't stand the test of time. So I think as they try maybe to get to a place that this one becomes too serious, they might be very unable to, successfully prosecute anyone to repay. Because that contract by itself is an illegal contract. So I think what lacks in the system is a dedicated regulator for them, because I don't get how the communication authority is regulating financial services. In fact, the only they can do, they are regulating the element of data protection, and they are not able to regulate in terms of the legality of the contract, and in terms of how it's drawn and so forth. There should be a dedicated regulator who allows, standardizes, for example, the contract and says across all platforms, you download a standard form contract and it can change, and the terms are the same across. But of course, the issue that we are lending our own money, we can lend by our own terms, and that the interest we want to, has been a narrative, but I don't think it's a narrative that can survive for much longer.
But Eddie, remember they may not prosecute you, but they take you to CID. See, it becomes more problem. Even if you pay the money now, you go to any we have 5 years, I don't know.
But I think they also the element.
You are graduating, I don't know. So many people have been affected by 500, 600.
Sure. The element of CRB
is an engineer. Borrowed something long time ago. So when we went to the bank, yes, the salary, it's 1,000 borrowed from Mshwari. Now you cannot even get money, you cannot even get that loan. He has already paid the loan, but he has to wait, I don't know, 5 years. When he's waiting, I don't know, to become what. So I don't know. I think there's also another problem which you need to understand.
Yes, we'll get there.
I think the element of CRB, in my view also, is becoming, the more there are people to lend, the more, the less effective CRB becomes. I mean, if 36 apps are sharing 40% or 60% of defaulters, and you see, it doesn't mean that 40% is defaulters in one app only. That defaulter is in all apps. So if you're taking that, you're getting the same person across. Then essentially it means if CRB was such a limitation, they would have a stagnating growth of default. But people don't care. I mean, I will lend to you tomorrow. I know you'll not pay, but I'm taking my chances with you. So I mean, the element of CRB, and I think, and I've actually had there was actually a conversation that was being shared on WhatsApp, where someone is being called by from one of the apps, telling me they have a loan. Every which loan? Tell him our loan. Say, I can't pay. He said he's going to be listed. I said, it's okay. You list me there, and there are people in that CRB. I'll find other people there. It's become, it's a joke, and I think CRB can work in countries where the financial system is so intertwined that it can also affect, for example, your prospect of employment and so on and so forth. But in CRB, it's so detached. It is so detached. In fact, if you want to get off CRB, you can call the owner of the bureau and declare your name there and then.
So I think still also when you look at CRB and the Credit Reference Bureau, and the philosophical foundation of credit reference is that service providers are able to lend to individuals and institutions while they know their level of risk. You remember we were looking at the bonds and saying that you have junk bonds. Now, in an ideal situation, when you have proper credit information, then you should be able to say, for example, this is A, B, C. These guys are good. These guys are moderate. These guys here are, I can deal with them at my own risk. So then what would happen is, these different clients should be able to benefit depending on their credit rating. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. In other words, good customers, good clients should benefit from lower rates. The not so good customers would then be required to pay a premium because there is a premium in collecting debt from them. Or, stated differently, their risks are high. So until the credit reference is structured and rewards the good borrowers, it will still never meet its purpose, because just like the way we were saying, these guys know there is a huge default risk, but then choose, let me slap all the clients with a high rate so that those guys who don't pay, my risks can be absorbed by the good clients who pay. And that brings even ethical and moral question. Make sense? Consumer protection, that is one angle that has made this a nightmare. Globalization. You know, boundaryless. Where we are saying now, boundaryless. We are looking at the last 2 or so months we've been working on something that is touching on a critical word, workplace. We spent a long time arguing what is a workplace in today's world. You know, what's workplace in today's world? Some of us are lucky, you can say my workplace in the USA, that's my workplace. But then, what about a guy who is on Uber? Where is his workplace? I thought the car is a tool of work, rather than his workplace. If you compared him with our driver, yeah, what about a person who is working on work? Some of us today didn't go to work, but they worked more than when they are in the office. True or false? Some of us will go home and work. So where is the workplace? So when you start thinking about the element of globalization and what this has done, meaning that these transactions, all this, your mobile money transfer, mobile credit cards, today we are talking about mobile money transfer across. A guy on Western Union will send you money from UK, right here when you are in class, isn't it? You are able to send funds across the boundaries. The plastic, your mobile credits, the plastic cards, the internet banking and all this. And then this has also brought in another element of consumer protection. And the element is what law and what jurisdictions become relevant in conflict resolution. Right? In the event that I am able to access funds, in the event that I'm able to access funds from a foreign account to my internet banking, I'm right here, possibly it's a UK account and all that. Then the question is, if I have disputes that needs to be resolved, at what point? Again, when you go to the law, of course, the service provider, the financial service provider has the upper hand, because they will say, look, in our contract, any disputes, whatever, the laws of this country shall apply. Everyone will say that, isn't it? But then, how easy is it to have cross-country dispute resolution? Make sense? How easy is it to have cross-country dispute resolution? Fine, we are talking about consumer protection. Am I protected as a consumer of this service, given that these guys are actually across the border? And there are real problems that can only be solved, again, many years, I would believe, because even different countries are trying to figure out how then, look at the EAC, for example. EAC for the last, I don't know how many years, has been struggling to put together a common framework. The East African community been struggling to put together a common framework. When it is almost there, it is then the distance becomes longer than it was before. Because there are new realities that you deal with every day you wake up. You wake up, you find there are new realities with regard to that. You wake up another time, and yet these treaties are important. We are talking about removing the borders in order to gain the overall economies of scale with regard to a larger market. But then what does that mean in the absence of common laws? What does that mean in terms of who will protect this consumer from exploitation? Who protects the consumer from exploitation? Or even who protects the service provider from exploitation by the other? So I want to move on. Yes, please.
of those SMEs actually doing it. So now the committee was trying to come up with a product that we charge to the informal sector, which is the bigger market, right? But then now, in as much as they want to reach out to that market, the terms are not give money to those guys. It's terms that are favorable, terms that are competitive. So what they do, they go for shadows, they go for people that are asking for so much money in terms of income. And since that's their only option, then they end up by those in as much as we want to control and protect our businesses, I feel that the systems that are already in place need to the gap that is already.
I think you said it perfectly well. That, and we can, and it still comes back to regulation in the financial services industry.
And now they're going even for microfinances, which are big claiming. Like today, I was commenting on the paper, they were saying that they registered, or rather, they've not licensed 3 of the microfinances. What they're doing fast practice is now becoming strict than the banks. So we want to know more I don't know what's supposed to happen. It's just one.
There are 2 issues. You are right. There are 2 issues that I see here. And the first issue is systemic. And I will put the same point I put at some point earlier. That when you look at the issues relating to credit and the access of credit by SMEs, you cannot delink that from government borrowing. Because government borrowing gives you the risk-free rate. Theoretically, allow me to use the word, theoretically risk-free rate, on which basic pricing of other products should start. Right? So as long as government is borrowing at the rates that we saw the rates of bonds, we saw the rates of bills. As long as government is borrowing at those rates, a typical banker, so it's still a systemic issue, and it is still a matter of government prudence. It's still a matter of government fiscal policy in terms of borrowing and taxing. But there is also another angle. These consumers also need to be protected against rogue institutions. Rogue institutions in the sense that you've got this SACCO, Savings and Credit Cooperative Society, that decides now it is a SACCO. You can bring in your hard-earned money, and then after we receive all this money, what do? We tell you we can lend to you, or we tell you that we can put up some housing for you because we want to do one of the big 4, which is affordable housing. Then we tell you now, come on Saturday, we will take you so that you can go and see where your house will be. The first 6 hours you are on the road. You just tell these guys where to release it to Nairobi. It's okay. But it's intentional. It's intentional. You just go back. You just say thank you. And then when you follow, they tell you no, we can't give you the money because we've already bought land where you will build that house. So we need to go so that we show you where your land is and you get your. So because of that, there are 2 sides to that. There's that element of protecting against rogue institutions. Right? And the middle part of it also is consumer education, because consumer protection also goes hand in hand with consumer education. Is the consumer empowered? Is the consumer having the right, appropriate education so that they know they are being exploited and they can stand out and they can shout out and say, I'm sorry, I think you are taking me the wrong way. So when we talk of consumer education, that's a completely different thing, because you find that we have very low levels of financial literacy. very low levels. Many people don't understand how all these issues about money and pricing, the informal businesses that you say, many people will not really get into the mechanisms of how is this money made and that kind of thing. They can't even tell, they are not able to price appropriately, and consequently the higher levels of risk. So, in the whole of that concept, the elements of consumer education and awareness of their rights again comes into place. So the question is, who is doing consumer education? And it's a whole issue of debate again when you start talking about consumer education. Because one, regulators are trying, in Kenya we know regulators are trying to do it, but they are not as effective. They are too formal and they are still up there. If you look at the initiatives that the Central Bank of Kenya is trying to do, they say, okay, can every bank ensure that you are publishing your rates? So you walk into any bank, you find that the rates have been published, but you look at that thing, you can't even tell what is what. Isn't it? Insurance, the Insurance Regulatory Authority is also trying a few things here and there. Different players are trying to do it. It's not becoming very effective. Now the other side to consumer education is the consumer education that is being passed over by the providers themselves. So I am a banker or an insurance company, so I come in here and I start educating you about insurance products. And the truth is, instead of educating you about insurance products, I start educating you about my products. I have no rights. I have absolutely no obligation to disclose defects that are in my product. Absolutely no. So this leaves an open. In a developed world, Europe, US, and other countries, you find the role, when you start talking about consumer protection and consumer education, this role is taken up by strong consumer organizations. There are strong consumer organizations. A consumer organization can even decide that our members will do without this product. And then they will have to force the players to react and create products that work for them or cheaper. So I think that's the way I put it. But you are right, it's a real issue. And that widely remains unaddressed. Nobody, if you ask me, nobody is looking at this. Did you say these are not the issues? Yeah, you are discussing, not studying. I wish I get guys interested in getting deep and deep into this matters. The other thing for regulation is financial stability. Because we said that financial market development correlates highly, strong positive correlation with economic growth. That's for sure. So if we've got proper regulations, then we are likely to have high market development. I think that's true, which again leads to the economy. But let us look at the emerging world and financial stability. Today, the financial world, I don't know whether to call it an interesting space or what is happening, but we are witnessing risks that have never been witnessed before. We are talking of financial markets crash, the crash of financial markets, a situation where crash of financial markets, a situation where a cross-section of stocks fall in price significantly, significant decrease in prices of stocks. And we are in a world where we are having price manipulations in the financial markets. Manipulation of prices in the financial markets. We are in a situation where our markets are increasingly interconnected. Increasingly interconnected. So that financial contagion is becoming real. We have real elements of financial contagion, meaning that something happens in one market, another market is even affected in a worse situation because there are so many interconnectedness within the world. Now, when you put this into place, you find that your market, the last time I checked the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and if someone has checked data recently, what percentage of stocks are owned by foreigners? The last time I checked it was 54%, but that's a few months ago. Maybe by now, of course it keeps changing, but the last time I checked it was 54%. Assuming that data is still accurate, what are we saying? In other words, the guys who invested here, and we go back to what we were saying about the laws. So if I have invested abroad, the laws of this country are the ones that govern the companies that are in this country, isn't it? And now you are a foreigner investor, 54%. So are you saying that 54% of these individuals would need protection from you? You get what I'm trying to say? So if you fix that with regard to regulation, again, it brings in sufficient challenges because you have lots of interconnectedness. And this interconnectedness, one, is good because you are able to harness capital. But then it has got its own challenges when it comes to regulation. In terms of, say, money laundering, it's much more difficult for individuals within the country. It's much easier, isn't it? For individuals within the country, it's much easier to say your account has always had this average balance. All of a sudden, that amount has increased by 20, 30 times. Where has the money come from? It's easy. But now, think of a foreign investor. This guy is in whatever country and is investing in here. It's just one large transfer. So elements of money laundering. And then the regulations of different countries, regulation crash becomes, or regulation crash also starts falling and playing part to all this. So you find a country saying, as we have absolutely no problems, if this guy sent the money there and use it for, we really don't care where money comes from as long as it is coming from outside the country. There are some countries that it's okay. It comes in, it's declared as sales. It comes in, it is declared as management fees. We went to a certain bank and offered a service. It's declared as management fees. And even taxed in the country. So when it is taxed, of course, it is being cleaned. Then now these guys can spend the money. So the whole of this landscape becomes very complicated once you start giving it the regulation rates. But again, it's important. What are we likely to see moving forward? We are likely to see situations of convergence of global regulations. That is something that has already started, the convergence of global regulations. So that you find, if it is the anti-money laundering, you find that Kenya is a signatory to this and this law that relates to money laundering. Kenya is a signatory, or a country like Kenya is a signatory to this law, which talks about this and that within the financial service space in Africa. So, moving on, because of all these factors, we are likely to see convergence of regulation. But different countries have different interests. Different countries have completely different interests. This is what we want. Different countries have different interests. They have got different balance of payments. So what is likely to happen is, when we start talking about that law, I first look at what is the relationship between your country and my country in terms of the balance of payment. So, and this is, for example, the case with Tanzania, across the road. What's the issue? The issue is that the balance of payment is in, if you look at Kenya, Tanzania, who is best placed in terms of the trade, balance of payment?
Kenya.
Kenya is better placed. Now you are coming to say, you know, we are having these illicit flows into or out of Tanzania. Can we make up some law that blocks these flows? If these flows are coming to me, I sit back and say that the law doesn't work for me. Isn't it? So again, these are issues that will happen. You'll keep getting all sorts of issues, but generally in the last decade, we have seen significant convergence of global regulations in the financial services industry. And typically, I think the last time I checked, I saw around 9 different laws that have already kind of converged or moving towards the same direction. And this might be much better, because then we are boundaryless, but then we can have some kind of common regulations for trade. And this is trade and service. Market efficiency. Unfortunately, all over the world, the financial services industry is very concentrated. Extremely concentrated. What does that mean? A few, they are held, institutions are held by, they are very tightly controlled. They are held by a few individuals. To measure concentration, there is a ratio that is called C4. C4, the C4 ratio, measures the market share of the top 4 companies in any industry. That's the C4 ratio. C4 concentration. So you will pick, for example, banking, and I'll give you this to think about it. Go and look at Kenya, for example, and we looked at the measures of banking efficiency. For example, the number of accounts, the asset values, and deposits as well. Then you can pick and say, how many accounts do we have in the country? Right? And then you ask yourself, the top 4 banks, regardless of how you measure, the top 4 banks, what is the percentage of their accounts they are doing? Right? Asset values, if you pick the top 4, then you say, what are their total asset values? Top 4, you add all of them and then you divide with the total asset values in the banking industry. What ratio are you likely to get? Sorry?
Maybe 80-20?
8-20. I think the last time I checked was 17. And you're talking of the top. So literally, you are saying, who is banking in Kenya? Who is controlling the banking industry? So when you do the top 4, you'll be shocked. But again, it's a global thing. Go to the insurance companies. Then you pick The last time I did a study on this, it's a bit of time ago, I think 5 or so years ago. But my interest was only on one product in the insurance business, that is annuities. Life annuities, be they life or fixed price or whatever, or period annuities. And the C4 was as high as 95%. Telling you that 95% of these accounts are literally being controlled by 4 companies. Everyone else is a spectator in that industry. Because you can imagine if you are 95, then you have another more than 10 players competing for the remaining 5%. And that tells you who controls that industry. So, regulation comes in to ensure that dominant positions are not abused. Because it's possible then to abuse dominant positions. If our C4 ratio is 80%, then the 4 of us can simply sit and decide, let us first starve the small banks with credit. Right? You technically drive them out of business. So you simply sit. It's abuse of dominant positions. Let us ring-fence our markets and keep some of these guys out. So regulation then comes in to say, what can a player do? A player who is holding a dominant position, what can they do? What should they not do? In Kenya, we do have a competitions authority. You are aware? We do have a competitions authority. And the whole thing behind the competitions authority is to help prevent occurrence of cartels, where different organizations just come together and decide we are going to block this other group from the market, we are going to only take this and that and create positions of dominance, which in effect hurt the economy. So that's the other objective of regulation. Let me just do this slide so that we move away from objectives. So others include safety of funds, promoting public confidence, ensuring equal opportunity and fairness, and also regulating manipulation activities. These ones are rather straight to the point. So we can take the break so that when we come back, we see what is regulated. I hope you are enjoying it. Now, the next section we want to see, what are the principles of financial sector? In other words, if regulation is to be successful, what do we need to see? First, it must have very clear objectives. Okay, and these objectives must be anchored in law. In other words, what does this regulation seek to achieve? And as you do this, there are a few things that you need to balance. There are a few things that you need to balance. Maybe I just want to just talk about it. There are a few things that you need to balance because, as you know, the needs of the buyers will be in contrast with those of the sellers of financial services, isn't it? So then, how do you balance demand and supply? Through regulation. How do you balance the trade-offs? We call them trade-offs. Because every time you have a regulation, the regulation will have a positive effect and a negative effect. Some people will be positively affected, others will be negatively affected. So the question is, how do you balance this so that everyone feels accommodated within the law? There should also be independence and accountability. I think I don't want to belabor that point because there are issues to be Resources in regulations, you need resources. How do you monitor, you know? And worldwide, regulation is enforced, regulation or regulatory stipulations are funded through industry levies. So when I say industry levies, what I mean is that the regulated institutions contribute towards the regulation. Okay? And again, it has been, the issue of levies has been, a whole ambiguous or a whole contentious issue. How much is enough and why and how much should be regulated, given that these organizations, regulators also raise money through licenses. So they will license you to do this. You have to renew your licenses at certain points in time. But then there is a continuous payment for industry levies. Again, these are funds, the most appropriate model is industry levies as opposed to allocation by government. And then enforcement. No matter how good your laws are, if they are not enforced, you are doomed. Is that true? Yes. No matter how good they are, if they are not enforced, then you are in trouble. Again, regulation needs to be very comprehensive in a way that we do not have what we call regulatory gaps. Because what happens is, players always exploit regulatory gaps to make money. Cost efficiency, meaning that it should not bring in undue burden. You know, cost efficiency should not bring out undue burden to the organizations and the individuals that are being regulated. Should not be, you know, the regulation should be such that it enables compliance with it. You should be able to comply with the regulation. It should be something that is achievable, you know, practical. Again, regulatory structures should mirror the sectors that are being regulated. Because there are certain sectors, like if it is insurance, then there must be very clear understanding of the industry and the sectors that are being regulated. There is nothing much. So what is regulated? The first one, prevention of systemic risks. Systemic risks are risks at the macro level and risks that are likely to affect all. And this includes things like price regulation. So sometimes you find that interest rates are being controlled by law, fees and commissions, direct lending and control, and compulsory investment schemes, as well as restrictions on cross-border capital flows. So you might find within the financial market some of these things being regulated, prices being regulated, interest rates being regulated, sometimes exchange rates being regulated, amounts that you can transfer across different countries being regulated, amounts that you can distribute. Sometimes some regulations even prohibit certain transactions if certain conditions are not fulfilled. For example, payment of dividends if you still have obligations. Other things that are regulated, restrictions on the range of activities, for example, specializations of banks, compartmentalization, is that correct? How you are you able, for example, to do banking and insurance at the same time, or should you separate banking and other services? those are things that can be that are always regulated. Restrictions on cross-border financial services, establishment of institutions, meaning that if you don't just start an institution, there is a whole set of regulation that you must follow to be able to get into this, to be able to start such an institution. Others are, now the institution is there, prudential regulation. This is a very popular term in the banking and insurance industry especially. Even in circles today, they're talking about prudential regulations. How much capital should support an organization to ensure that it is effectively sustained? So they even have certain financial ratios. They will have inspections, regulations relating to when audits would need to be done, regulations relating to who can sit in the board, who cannot sit in that board. I mean, there are so much. And this is done intentionally to protect the integrity of those institutions. There are others that are done to prevent individual risks, for example, codes of conduct, disclosure of information. Sometimes you have regulations that say, if you do this, then you must provide the following information. Okay? Other regulations are meant to promote efficiency. Other regulations are simply meant to promote efficiency. So you have to say, bring out financial statements every quarter or every half year to promote efficiency. You have to do a governance audit around this time, like once in a year, once in 2 years, you have to do a governance audit. You have to, so that at any given time, you are reviewing your efficiency levels within your overall organization. So sometimes you find that all these things are subject to regulation, and they influence the way you do business. Any question or comment? Next, let's see what models are applied by many different countries. So you could visit a country and you find you have what is called institutional supervision. Like in Kenya, we use institutional supervision. Insurance companies are regulated by the Insurance Regulatory Authority. You have the Retirement Benefits Authority for retirement benefit schemes. You have the Capital Markets Authority for listed companies. You have the Nairobi Securities Exchange, dotted line with the Capital Markets Authority. You have SASRA for the Savings and Credit Cooperative Societies and all that. Now, I just want to focus on something. When you have an institutional model, you tend to get certain advantages. The model that we use in Kenya, for example, you tend to have certain advantages. And one of the advantages is that these institutions, you can have significant institutional growth. Because, for example, you have someone looking at savings and cooperative societies. So they wake up in the morning, their job is savings and credit societies. Someone else wakes up every day, what is giving them sleepless nights is the growth of the insurance industry. Another one wakes up, what is giving them sleepless nights is banking. So you tend to have institutional growth because of that high level of specialization that happens. Are we together? But they also suffer their own limitations. One, in the era of conglomerates, you know what conglomerates are? Conglomerates, where you have this business. Nowadays, this is a bank. Within the bank, there is insurance. Within the bank, there is investment management. Take, for example, say the cooperative bank. Cooperative, I know, has an insurance wing. Am I right? It is a bank. It has an investment management wing. What else? Yes, that's what I'm saying, investment management. Yeah, investment management and all that. So then literally these guys, you find that then, who then supervises them? So one day you find the Central Bank of Kenya guys there with their briefcases, they will want to see what you are doing, isn't it? Next, there is a guy from Insurance Regulatory Authority. They also have an interest because you are doing insurance. Next, there is a guy from Capital Markets Authority. Next, there is a guy from, is it called SASRA, because this is, the cooperative bank is banked most of the cooperative movement and all that. So you find all these guys, the Retirement Benefits Authority, also coming in because you are an investment manager, so you are a custodian. The cooperative bank is a custodian. That attracts the Retirement Benefits Authority because it means that you are keeping custody of assets of retirement benefit schemes. So in other words, you end up finding a situation where you have one institution and then you have so many regulators that have an interest in the kind of business that you do. So, what does this therefore mean? In some jurisdictions, you do have a single regulator supervision. Single regulator supervision, which is the opposite of institution, that this is the financial service regulator. So, whether you are a bank, you are an insurance company, the Securities Exchange, everyone, as long as you fall within the scope of financial services industry, then you have only one regulator. Are we together? So different countries, of course, the problem with single regulator model again is that it tends to create some kind of regulatory monopoly because we are the only ones. So if you come to us and if you didn't get an answer from us, you are doomed. Institutional, on the other hand, creates a loophole, which means I can sit back and say, eventually my idea is to get into insurance business. But because the insurance way looks very tough, let me start off as a bank, and then you get it. Then I expand, I will find my way of getting into insurance because I have put my foot there. So you might find a bit of regulatory arbitrage because now I sit back and say, if I'm a cooperative bank and I meet the conditions of the central bank, should anyone else come and start looking at my financial ratios? After all, insurance is a very small part of my business. Or investment management is a very small part of my business because my core business is one. My core business is not investment management. So there are all these issues, but at the same time, when the market is in its nascent stages, if you have markets that are very young, institutional model tends to work because then you have a focus on specific institutions. Also, although again, some literature argues that you could, if you are in a small financial market, you could benefit more through a single regulator because of economies of scale and all that. So, that said, what should be considered? What would a typical country look into to decide whether they want to do an institutional or a single regulator model? Yes.
The level of mind when it comes to the you might have strong laws that support, let's say, one institution to be able to carry out this.
So your position at a certain point in time, the position at a certain point in time, the level of financial market development, the more developed you are, the higher the chances of getting into simple regulation. Yeah. Need for certain specialties, Because sometimes also it's argued that even when you are on single regulator model, it is still, you will still have some kind of departments. So you could have this overall single regulator, but then in there, you have a department that deals with security markets. You have another department that deals with insurance, another department that deals with banking. Arguing therefore that even when you have a single regulator model, chances are that you also adopt some kind of institution, because the only difference is that these are departments reporting to. But again, in a single regulator model, it is very easy to forget the tiny industry, right? So here you are, banking is huge. Of course, you and I, as leaders and managers, know one thing, that you tend to put in a lot of effort and a lot of your time, depending on the percentage share of the different products or different departments. In other words, you look at what is the relative size of my organization in terms of this component, isn't it? And then you tend to put in a lot of, because that is where your risks are. And so the problem here then is that when you are this huge giant, and say banking is huge, insurance is a bit small, but security markets are a bit tiny. You might end up forgetting the ones that are too small. You say, even if this one fails, it is only 1 or 3% of our total business. So, but banking is 74%. So you end up putting all your effort on the bigger one. So as a problem, so again, we can't really say that one model is better than the other, because it is conditional and dependent on the nature of each and every country. There are some countries that do run, that combine some elements of single regulation with institutional, and let's see if that's all we are talking about. I think there's another point I've missed here, the issue of duplication. Duplication is avoided. So if you look at this, you find that you have some countries that literally have no consolidation. They've got separate regulators for each sector. On the other hand, you have got some that have what is called partial consolidation. They've combined some, but then left others. For example, they've combined capital markets and insurance, which means that banking is separate. This one's combined banking and insurance, which means that capital markets are separate. This one combines banking and capital markets, which means that insurance is separate. And there are those that have full consolidation. But one of the main observations is that as financial markets develop, then the affinity towards full consolidation increases.
So for the first column, where we have like 2 sub-columns in the because the list is long.
Yeah, the list is wrong.
Oh, right.
So continue.
Yeah, I thought there was another subtitle.
No. Sometimes we have problems with financial sector regulation, and these problems, of course, it inhibits innovations. You try to do anything and the regulators say, no, you can't do that. It inhibits regulation. Costly. Organizations spend quite a bit of resources. Different organizations spend quite a bit of resources on adhering to regulations. Point 3, I know I had mentioned that sometimes governments will take too long to enact a rule. And then also sometimes conflict rules may be passed depending on which approach is used. So sometimes, especially when you have institutional supervision, sometimes you find that there are conflicts of laws. So this guys, one group wants you to do this, the other group wants you to do something else. So sometimes you are complying with this regulation and then you are messing another regulation. So the whole of this would need to be taken into consideration. So the limitations of financial sector regulation. But you can't do without it. So I think I talked about this. Am I right? The case for consolidated, when you have compromise, economies of scale, reducing the regulatory arbitrage, and strengthening accountability. And the case against, of course, again, I know I talked about this, reduced effectiveness. It was so huge, then you might suffer these economies of scale. And then loss of focus, and the dominant subsector might swallow up the smaller sectors. Again, moral hazard. So let's look at the emerging issues in financial markets. Emerging issues with regard to regulation of financial markets. And the first one here relates to the growing capital flows across the world. And what is happening is that there is significant international trade. Significant international trade in this sector. And so you have a lot of flows. Now, almost every product that we sell in the financial markets, almost every product offered in the financial markets have a global dimension. We are talking of international bonds. You know, we are talking about Euro bonds. We are talking about all this. Who regulates this and what happens in the event of failure? So what's, of course, facilitated by technology. And the issue is then, how do you track the flows and manage the impact of these flows? Because there are significant financial flows flowing across, right, left, center, everywhere. New types of products, services, and instruments. So again, this century we see so many different types. We see so many different types of products as a result of innovations. And the question then is how to assess their positive and negative contributions, that is in terms of risk, because these products bring about risk. I remember, was it the last class when we were talking about asset-backed securities, isn't it? And we saw the kind of risks that emerge when you have these asset-backed securities amongst other assets. We are saying that today, for the first time, we are challenging the notion of risk-free rents, isn't it? For the very first time. We are having governments failing to honor their obligations. You end up having, you have this government and it is unable to honor its. Governments failing to honor its obligations. What happens? Yet, that's the government that is the custodian of the regulation. Assessing the risk, you assess political risks for the, again, and you are not just talking about political risks from a country perspective, you are talking about political risks from a global perspective. Right? Global perspective. Today, everyone is talking about Trump and the financial markets, right? And then what does that mean for us? You're talking about the geopolitical issues regarding China, US, and the other parts of the world. Brexit. And what does that mean in the context of what we do and in the context of regulations? And presenting numerous inabilities to assess the risk potentials. Different organizations trying to do this and sometimes not just making it. The other one is the issue of transparency in the markets. Transparency. For the first time, we find a lot of information opaqueness. Technology is supposed to bring about people having much more information, isn't it? But what are we seeing today? A lot of information opaque. The correct information is blinded. The information that is imperfect and not correct, we find a lot of it in the market. So what is happening today is that there is a tendency of people using wrong information to make decisions. Why? Due to lack of transparency. Then also how to assess the risk profiles of large banks and financial conglomerates, because we are in, as I have said, we are in the world of conglomerates. So, how are these? Who is assessing the risk? Because one dimension is no longer enough. And then lastly, how to ensure coordinated regulation of financial services. How do you get this in a coordinated and effective manner? And that's my last slide. So, quick question. Question, comment? Okay, nobody wants to make a question, nobody wants to make a comment.
Just to confirm when we are delivering the second assignment.
It doesn't have a date? Okay, you can give it 3 weeks from today. This is week 9. Yeah, you can have in week 12. Today is day 1. Today is 12, that is week 9. Right? So 19th will be week 10, 26th, 2nd of April. The day we have class. South. 2nd of April. So, but there is one that is due today. Tunaona kesho ashamaliza. Kila mtu ashamaliza. Sita ashamaliza. Yes, so I know I have received requests for extension. You want to extend? Anyone else, please?